Assalamu alaikum. All the brothers are requested to come to the main hall for our daily dars with Mulana Yusuf. This will be the only session for today. We won't have our Tajweed workshop, so please join right now.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So let's get started. Just as a disclaimer, inshallah I won't drag on too long today because I recognize it's Jummah and we all sat through 2 Jummahs for whoever's here probably. So inshallah it'll be relatively short. I'll try to keep it concise, inshallah. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just continue on from where we left off with the next hadith. So I'll read it and translate it and then we'll discuss it inshallah. Okay. So عن حذيفة رضي الله عنه قال كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير. Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman narrates that he says that people used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about good things, right? Because people naturally want to hear about good things, so people generally would ask about that. However, sorry, I lost my place. وَكُنْتُ أَسْأَلُهُ عَنِ الشَّرِّ. However, for me, I would ask him about bad things. مَخَافَةَ إِن يُدْرِكَنِي. Out of fear that these things might befall me. So I just wanted to protect myself, so I would ask about all the bad things. I let everyone else ask about the good things. قَالَ قُلْتُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. So I said, O Messenger of Allah. Who's speaking again? Can someone remind me? Sorry? Who's speaking? Who was the Sahabi at the beginning? Hudhayfa, good. Okay, so we'll come to that in a second, just as I finish reading this hadith. So Hudhayfa radiallahu anhu says, قُلْتُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. O Messenger of Allah. إِنَّا كُنَّا فِي جَاهِلِيَّةٍ وَشَرٍ. We used to be in the times of ignorance, in the times of Jahiliyyah, and we were in bad times. We were in shar. فَجَاءَنَا اللَّهُ بِهَذَا الْخَيْرِ. Then, after those bad times, Allah Ta'ala brought about good times. Allah Ta'ala gave us khair. فَهَلْ بَعْتَ هَذَا الْخَيْرِ مِنْ شَرٍ. So right now we have good times. Is there going to be bad after this? Or is the good going to perpetually last? فَهَلْ بَعْتَ هَذَا الْخَيْرِ مِنْ شَرٍ. Is there going to be bad after this good? قَالَ نَعْمُ. The Prophet ﷺ said yes. Meaning that yes, there will be bad after this good. قُلْتُ وَهَلْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ الشَّرْ مِنْ خَيْرٍ. Hudhayfa then asked, well, after that bad that comes, is there going to be good? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, قَالَ نَعْمُ وَفِيهِ دَخَلٍ. That yes, there will be good after the bad, but it'll be tainted. It won't be like a full, complete good. قُلْتُ وَمَا دَخْنُهُ. I said, how will it be tainted? Dakhan literally means smoke. Means that it's not going to be clear, it's going to be like smoky. In other words, it'll be tainted. قَالَ, let me go back, sorry. قَالَ قَوْمٌ يَسْتَنُّونَ بِغَيْرِ سُنَّتِي وَيَهْتَدُونَ بِغَيْرِ هَدِي تَعْرِفُ مِنْهُمْ وَتُنْكِرُ. So Hudhayfa said that some people will follow other than my sunnah, and they'll seek guidance other than my guidance. So you'll see some good in them, but you also see some bad. Okay? قُلْتُ فَهَلْ بَعْتَ هَذَا الْخَيْرِ مِنْ شَرٍ. So after that khair, after those good times, is there going to be bad after that? قَالَ نَعْمُ. The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, there will be more bad times after that. دُعَاتٌ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ جَهَنَّمٍ. There are going to be callers on the gates of hell. مَنْ أَجَابَهُمْ إِلَيْهَا قَذَفُوهُ فِيهَا. Whoever responds to these people, they'll cast him therein. They'll throw him in, basically pull him into hell along with them. قُلْتُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صِفْهُمْ لَنَا. So how can I recognize these people? These callers at the gates of hell. How can I know who they are? Tell me about them. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, قَالَ هُمْ مِنْ جِلْدَتِنَا وَيَتَكَلَّمُونَ بِأَلْسِنَتِنَا. There, they look like us, and they speak like us. Jild literally means skin. They're from our skin. And they speak the same language as us. What does that mean? Inshallah, we'll discuss a little bit further. قُلْتُ فَمَا تَأْمُرُنِي إِنْ أَدْرَكَنِي ذَلِكَ. So Hudayfa radiallahu anhu said, whoa, this sounds very scary. What should I do if I end up seeing those times? قال تلزم جماعة المسلمين وإمامهم. The Prophet ﷺ said, stick with the majority of the Muslims, the group of Muslims, and stick with their imam. قلت, so I said, Hudayfa, فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُمْ جَمَاعَةٌ وَلَا إِمَامٌ. So you can see he was really thinking. He said, well, you're telling me to stick with the Jamaat of Muslimin, like the large majority of Muslimin. You're telling me to stick with the imam, but what if there's no apparent group of Muslims, like this large majority of Muslims? What if everyone's scattered about? What if they have no leader? There's no central authority. Then what do I do? قال فاعتزل تلك الفرق كلها. The Prophet ﷺ said, in that case, just stay away from all the groups. Be by yourself. Yeah. ولو أن تعض بأصل شجرة حتى يدركك الموت وأنت على ذلك. Stay away from everything to the extent, even if you have to bite down on a tree. Basically, you're just in the middle of the wilderness, no one else around you, and you die in that state, that you die in a state of isolation. If that's what it takes to avoid all the fitna, then that's what you have to do. In these, of course, those trying times. Okay, so yeah, we'll stop over there. That's the end of the narration. Okay, whoa, this is a lot to digest. We can see that through this hadith there's many different lessons that we can extract and many different, there's a long explanation. The first thing though, just to get the hadith straight, it mentioned that Sayyidina Hudayfa said there is good and bad and good and bad. There's a lot of those different changings of times. So then did anyone keep track? Can anyone tell me like how many exactly good periods of good and periods of bad there will be based on the description of the hadith? Sorry? Yeah. 2 each, so a total of 4 different periods? Okay, Masha, are you keeping track? When I read it the first time, actually, I lost track. That's good. I think it's more than that. Does anyone have a different answer? Okay, well, let's see. Okay, let's count. Can you see the mouse? No? You don't see the mouse here, do you? Oh, okay, well. Pointer options, 1 second. Okay, do you see something now? No. Okay, well, oh well. Okay, so let's look through this. Okay, so you'll just have to follow along with me. Look at the 3rd line. It says, we were in ignorance and evil. Okay, so that's the first period. Ignorance and evil. So the first thing was bad, right? Then Allah Ta'ala bestowed upon us the present good. Okay, so then which period is that? 2nd period. Are you guys following along? If I had a pointer, I'd point, but I forgot to ask for it. Okay, so then now evil and then good. And will there be any evil after this good? He said yes. So then now how many periods do we have? 3. Okay, evil, good, evil. I asked, will there be good after that evil? So now what do we have? 4, right? Okay, are you guys following along? Yes? Okay, hopefully. He said yes, but it will be tainted with dakhan, okay? Okay, now look in the middle. It says, I said, right in the middle of the paragraph, and after that, will there be any evil after that good? Oh, Jazakullahu Khairun. Perfect. Okay. Okay, will there be any evil after that good? So that is, which period now? 5th, right? Am I counting correctly? 5th, okay. So let's look at this. Okay, now where is the mouse? Okay, so now we can see from this, okay, you can see this chart that I have up here. Okay, so what do we have first? We have bad times, and what are those bad times? Shar, right? Okay, that's what bad means. But what was it? It was Jahiliyyah. Because Hudayfa radiallahu anhu originally said, maybe it's easier if I stand up. Okay. There's a broadcast, so I still have to speak into the mic. Okay, so Hudayfa radiallahu anhu initially said that we were in bad times. He even described what those bad times were. So what were those bad times? Right, Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic ignorance. Those were the initial bad times. And then after that, he said, فَجَاءَنَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بِهَذَا الْخَيْرِ. Then Allah Ta'ala brought about good. So it's pretty obvious, pretty easy to figure out what that is. Because they were in Jahiliyyah, pre-Islamic ignorance, and then after that, Allah Ta'ala gave them good. So what is that good? The Prophet ﷺ, and hence Islam that he brought. So then first you have bad times, and then you have good times, which is Islam. And then we saw that from the hadith, we saw there's a few more periods. There's the bad times after that, the good times, and then the bad times, again, really bad times, because you have callers at the gates of hell. Right? So now our task for the next few minutes is we have to try to figure out what these three things are going to be. We've already sort of ascertained or specified what these two are. Now we have to figure out what these three are. Okay, but that's going to take a bit of explanation. So before I get into that, I'll just mention a few things in general, and then we'll get into that, inshallah. Okay. So the first thing that we learn, though, from the hadith is that it's narrated by Sayyidina Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. Now, who can tell me something about Sayyidina Hudayfa? Who knows something about him? Salim, do you know? Anyone else? Yeah? Right, okay, so that's one thing that he's known for. He was known as the secret keeper of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ entrusted him with the names of the munafiqeen, hypocrites. Okay, and that was just something that he knew, and it wasn't general knowledge. No one else really knew that. Okay, what else about him? Anything else? Okay, so when we read through hadith, we'll see that certain Sahaba had a lot of interest in certain categories of a hadith, certain topics within hadith. And then hence they would ask a lot of questions regarding that certain topic. Okay? So for each topic you have sort of like an MVP. So the MVP of Kitab al-Fitan is definitely Sayyidina Hudayfa. He would ask all these questions. And due to the zeal that these Sahaba had in regards to their specific topics that they were interested in, they were able to extract a lot of information from the Prophet ﷺ that now we benefit from 1400 years later. So Sayyidina Hudayfa says at the beginning of the hadith that people would generally ask about good. People would ask about khair. However, as for me, I wouldn't do that. What would he ask about? He would ask about shar, he would ask about fitna, bad stuff. Why? مَخَافَةَ أَن يُدْرِكَنِي. I didn't want it to befall me. I wanted to stay safe from it. I wanted to avoid it. So I needed to know about it so I could avoid it. So then I would ask about all those bad things. So now we owe a great deal to Sayyidina Hudayfa because due to the zeal that he had in regards to this topic, we're able to, 1400 years later, now we're able to learn about this topic because the Prophet ﷺ offered a lot of guidance based on the questions that Sayyidina Hudayfa radiallahu anhu presented to him. Another example of that, for example, when we look at the ahadith regarding hunting, there is one Sahabi who is very, very interested in hunting. Okay, this is sort of an obscure fact. Does anybody by any chance know who he is? I'm not expecting anyone to. Hamza radiallahu anhu? Not as far as I know. That's a good guess. I mean, it could be that he was interested in hunting too, but specifically the ahadith that are narrated are primarily narrated regards to hunting by a different Sahabi. Sayyidina Hamza himself doesn't narrate many hadith, or any hadith, as far as I know, because he passed away much before the Prophet ﷺ left this world. And most of the Sahaba that are the most prolific in narrating hadith are generally those that lived for a long time after the Prophet ﷺ, because they lived after him, and then hence many students would come to them and they would pass on the hadith and things like that. Whereas the Sahaba that passed away before the Prophet ﷺ, they don't really narrate hadith because that whole system wasn't in place, because if anybody wanted guidance, they would just go to the Prophet ﷺ and ask himself. So, not Sayyidina Hamza. It's an obscure fact. I'm not really expecting anyone to know. Okay, he narrates a lot of hadith about battle. That's a very good guess. So he's the MVP of the hadith about battle and war and stuff. It's Sayyidina Adi bin Hatim. He was the son of the famous Arab, Hatim al-Ta'i, he was known for his generosity. Adi bin Hatim. So a lot of the hadith about hunting, he was really interested in it. Then he would ask a lot of questions about hunting, and then we were able to receive a lot of guidance due to the zeal that he had. So in the different topics of hadith, you see different sahaba who are the champions of that topic, or the MVPs of that topic. When I was studying Kitab al-Fitan in South Africa, they have a different form of English. So instead of MVP, they say man of the match. So then my teacher, Qari Rashid, would always say that Sayyidina Hudayfa was the man of the match. For a long time, I didn't know what he was talking about, and then I'm like, oh, that's what he means. So Sayyidina Hudayfa is our man of the match. Okay, so anyway, and what do we see about him? That he was very zealous to know about the fitan so he could protect himself from it. So what principle can we extract from that? What do you think? What do we learn from that? It's up on the screen if anyone wants to peek. Yeah, to stay safe. I wrote over here, this is a quote, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." Does anyone know who this quote is from? Yeah, Benjamin Franklin, good. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So what do we see? Sayyidina Hudayfa, what was he trying to do? He was trying to learn about these bad things so he could prevent those things from afflicting him, from harming him. So he had this mindset that I need to prevent myself from falling into any wrong things, or I need to avoid all these fitnas. So he had this mindset. He had this concern to protect iman, as I wrote over there. This is a lesson that we can all take. Because especially as we saw yesterday, how many challenges and threats are there to our iman living today in this society? Many. There's many threats to our iman, right? Some people, as I said yesterday, as we discussed, they explicitly denounce the faith. Na'udhu. Other people, they adopt heretical beliefs, some of them which might put them outside of the scope of iman. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. So Sayyidina Hudayfa had this mindset that I need to protect my iman, I need to know about all these fitnas to make sure that none of them befall me. So this is a lesson that we can learn from him, that we also live in trying times. So just like he had concern to always protect his iman, he was zealous to learn about these fitnas so he could know how to avoid them. That's something that we must also do as well. Okay, so now I was saying there are bad times, we specified what that is. Then good times, we specified what that is. Now these three things, bad, then good, then bad, really bad. Okay, so now this is going to take a little bit of detail. Okay, so we started at 3:10, about 3:10, 3:15, something like that. I said I'd try to keep it short, so it'll be less than an hour, so we're not going to go into excruciating detail. Anybody wants further detail, please see me afterwards. But in order to understand these, we have to have some idea of historically what are the events that happened following the Prophet ﷺ's leaving of this world. Okay, so this is going to be a history lesson, but again, not in too much detail, so I apologize for that, but just see me afterwards if you're still curious. Okay, so now the Prophet ﷺ left this world in the year 11. Which month did he pass away in? Anyone know? Sorry? Rabiul Awwal, yes. The Prophet ﷺ left this world in the month of Rabiul Awwal. So then he passed away in the year 11. Then after that, who was the Khalifa immediately after him? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And how long did he rule for? Yeah, 2 years and some months, about 2.5 years. As you can see over here, right? 11 to 13, that's 2 years. And then after that, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu took over. And then he was Khalifa for about 10 years. Over here it has 11 written, but I think it's 10 years and some months maybe. Okay, so then Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab was the Khalifa. And after that, what happened? Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan was the Khalifa, as you can see over here. He was Khalifa for, here it says 11 years, about 11 to 12 years. He was the Khalifa. Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan. Okay, and then after that, it was Ali radiallahu anhu, right? He was the fourth Khalifa. And he was the Khalifa from the year 35 to 40, about 4 years and some months. Then after that, for a few months, Sayyidina Hassan, the son of Ali radiallahu anhu, was the Khalifa. Okay, so some of us might be familiar with this, some of us might not. If you're not, then there it is. If you are, then hopefully this will refresh your memory. But I'm not going to go into detail about how each of them was elected and stuff because that'll take too much time. But let's just talk about it in brief. So what characterized the Khilafah of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu? He was Khalifa for just a brief period of time, just a little over 2 years. What were some of the main events that happened when he was the ruler? Okay, false prophets, good. What were you saying? Oh, that's right. Sorry? Okay, that was a great achievement that he had compilation of the Quran. Sorry? Yeah, so people refused to pay zakat. So what we can see from the Khilafah of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he was trying to secure stability, radiyallahu anhu, because there were a lot of internal struggles in that time. So as some of you mentioned, there are false prophets that were popping up everywhere. And then people began following these false prophets in troves, in large numbers. So he had to stabilize, he had to fight those people, and he had to secure the dominance of Islam. So that was an internal struggle that was recurring during his Khilafah, and he had to deal with that. And he did, mashallah, and he secured Islam for us. May Allah Ta'ala reward him. And then after that, in addition to that, there were people that refused to pay zakat, people that were leaving Islam. So then he had to deal with that as well. So during the Khilafah of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he did great services for Islam, but it wasn't necessarily a period of great expansion, of great growth. Why? Because what was he dealing with? All these internal struggles, right? And plus, he wasn't even Khalifa for so long, just a little over 2 years. He didn't even have a chance to really grow so much, because especially it was a short time and he was dealing with all these issues. Okay, so that was Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Now after that, Sayyidina Umar comes, radiyallahu anhu. He's Khalifa for around 10 years, a little bit over that. And now what characterized his period of rule? Expansion. It's known in history, at least in Western history, it's known as the golden age of Islam, right? Because what happened in his Khilafah? There was justice, there was expansion, there are all these things, right? There was peace, all these things, right? So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, he had a great period of stability, great period of growth, expansion, everyone was happy. Now, okay, so we know about the first two. Now what happened after that in the Khilafah of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu? Okay, mashallah, some of you have done your homework. Okay, so yes, so some are saying fitna, some are, what I heard an answer on this side? Strife? Okay, yeah, fitna. Okay, so then now, Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, he was one of the foremost Muslims, one of the most pious, one of the closest to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now, he had there's no deficiency regarding his rule or anything like that. But unfortunately, the latter part of his rule is characterized by internal struggle, strife, fitna, as you guys have been saying. So the first, I guess you can say half or maybe slightly more than that of his rule was he continued with the leverage and the momentum that existed from the Khilafah of Sayyidina Umar. So there was a lot of growth at the time of Sayyidina Uthman. But then what happened? These internal problems, this internal discord started to arise. And then it became so prevalent, and it became so encompassing that it caused major issues for the Sayyidina Uthman, to the extent that what did it eventually lead to? He was assassinated, rahimahullah, radiyallahu anhu. But all this internal strife eventually led to his assassination. Okay, that's in brief. We'll discuss a little bit about how that occurred. Now, what about Sayyidina Ali, radiyallahu anhu, the next one? What characterized his Khilafah? Sorry? He was trying to stabilize, trying to establish it. What else? Infighting, civil war. Okay, so Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu had one of the most difficult periods of rule, because his Khilafah was characterized by a lot of civil war. There were 3 major wars that were fought during his short period of around 4 years. And then Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu also fought wars. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was expanding, and they were I guess there was some struggle that took place on the frontiers. But that was between Muslims and non-Muslims. But with Sayyidina Ali, one of the major difficulties for him was that, what were his wars? As some of you said, civil wars. What does that mean? Muslims versus Muslims. So that's obviously much more difficult. So he had a very difficult khilafah, rahimahullah. So now, okay, that's in brief. And then his son, Sayyidina Hassan radiallahu anhu, was Khalifa for just a couple of months, and then what happened? He was Khalifa for about 5 or 6 months, and then he abdicated the Khilafah in favor of Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, who was at that time the governor of Sham, of like Syria. Okay, so that's in brief. Now I'm going to go into a little bit more detail so we can understand the hadith that we just read. Okay, so now when Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu was Khalifa, as I said in the beginning, there was a lot of growth, expansion, stability, justice, all that good stuff. But then there are some people that realized that militarily we won't be able to bring down Islam, because Islam had at that point spread far and wide. It was conquering dominant empires of the time. So they said no one seems to be able to stand up to Islam militarily through brute force, so what would be another way to bring down Islam? Through internal discord. So then there was a person who pretended to become Muslim. His name was Abdullah bin Sabah. And what he did was he pretended to become Muslim, and then in brief, basically he started a propaganda campaign. He started spreading rumors about the Khalifa, that Sayyidina Uthman is bad and he does this and this and this, and then these started to spread. And then this internal discord, this animosity against the Khalifa, it grew. And it grew until it eventually led to the assassination of Sayyidina Uthman. Now this is the first time in the history of Islam that the blood of a Muslim was shed by fellow Muslims. So this was a horrific incident. And now Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu was being besieged he was besieged in his house by these people who wanted to murder him. And then he said that, please, I exhort you to put down your swords. And then he told them many things. And then people tried to encourage him. They said, well, why don't you just defend yourself? He said, I'm not going to defend myself. Because I heard the Prophet ﷺ say that whenever the sword is unsheathed against the ummah, it'll never be put back in its sheath again. And I don't want the person to be the one to have that in his legacy. I don't want to be the person to begin that. If they kill me, let it be. So be it. But I'm not going to be the one to be the first one to shed blood of another Muslim, because then it'll continue to happen to the rest of Qiyamah, as the Prophet ﷺ predicted, as we witness today. And I'm not going to be the one to start that. So if they want to kill me, so be it. So then eventually what happened was, as we know, Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu was assassinated by those people. Now Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu takes over. And he was the rightful choice for a Khalifa. He was definitely the most prominent Muslim who was alive at that time. We know his virtues. He was a son-in-law of the Prophet ﷺ. He was the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. He grew up in his house. He was one of the first people to accept Islam. And he had sacrifice upon sacrifice for the sake of Islam. He was constantly at the side of the Prophet ﷺ. In the Battle of Tabuk, Sayyidina Rasulullah ﷺ left Sayyidina Ali behind to look over Medina. Sayyidina Ali was naturally perturbed that he wasn't able to go out in battle. The Prophet ﷺ said, aren't you pleased that you be to me as Harun was to Musa? When Musa ﷺ went to go meet Allah, went to go speak to Allah Ta'ala, then he left Harun ﷺ in charge. He said, you are to me like Harun is to Musa. Basically, you have such a great status. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he was a person who was one of the most prominent people, definitely the most prominent Muslim alive at that time. And then he was the natural successor, the natural choice for Khalifa. But now, unfortunately, he was dealing with very difficult circumstances. The people that had killed Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, they were running loose. And if it's just now, okay, we can just look at our society. When someone commits a murder, then what happens? Is that person apprehended right away? Sometimes you might read in the paper that there's a murder trial that's going on right now for a murder that happened in 1992. Has anyone ever seen anything like that? It's not always so easy to just catch the murderer right away and apprehend him. Sometimes this is a case with a crime that happened with just one person that was perpetrating it. And then he was awaiting trial and whatever other complications arose. But like that person, maybe he committed the murder in 1992, maybe in 2000, and now he's being tried. So we just see in our lives that it's not always so easy, it's not always so straightforward to apprehend the one who perpetrated the crime. Now multiply that by a large number. Because it wasn't just one person who was involved in the assassination of Sayyidina Uthman. How many was it? Hundreds. There's a large number of people that were part of this plot. So now to apprehend all of those people, do you think it'll be an easy task? Obviously not. So now that's something to keep in mind. So now these people that had killed Sayyidina Uthman, they're running loose. And there are so many of them, it's kind of difficult to determine right away, okay, this guy was involved, that guy wasn't involved. It's not so straightforward. So now these people are running loose. Now Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, now he's the Khalifa. The reins of the Khilafah are put in his hands. And he said, okay, the first thing we need to do is I need to first gain stability. Because right now these people are running loose. Half the people aren't listening to me. I just want to gain stability first. I want to assert my authority, and then after that, then I'm going to take care of business. The people that need to be put to trial and killed for the murder of Sayyidina Uthman, I'm going to put them to trial. But what's the first thing that I need to take into consideration? My first order of priority would be to gain stability. Okay, so that was the perspective of Sayyidina Ali. Now you had other Sahaba, and obviously everyone is horrified, absolutely mortified by the killing of Sayyidina Uthman. Not only is he a person that was promised Jannah on multiple occasions by the Prophet ﷺ, not only was he one of the closest people to the Prophet ﷺ, not only was he the person that even the angels would be shy of, but he was the ruler of the time. And up to that point, the blood of a Muslim has never been shed by another Muslim. So now everyone is absolutely horrified that Sayyidina Uthman is killed in such a gruesome way. So now everyone else, they're not thinking in that way that we need to first gain stability. What does everyone else want to do? They want to take revenge first. They said first we need to deal with the killers of Uthman, and then everything else can happen afterwards, that's fine. But this is our first order of priority. We need to deal with these killers. So that's what many other Sahaba, that's what their view was. Okay, is that clear so far? Okay, so sorry. We'll try to finish by 4 o'clock. Is going to be a bit ambitious, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, so that was what some of the other Sahaba, their view was. So now, okay, just as a disclaimer, what we're speaking right now about is internal discord, dispute, infighting that happened amongst the Sahaba. Now, as a disclaimer, we need to keep in mind that whenever we hear a story of conflict, then our natural human tendency is to do what? Take sides. Yes, naturally we do that. Naturally, in our mind, we envision, okay, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. But we have to know that we're speaking about not just any random group of people. We're not speaking about like superheroes or anything like that. What are we speaking about? Who are we speaking about? The Sahaba. So that means that one of our defining beliefs of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that we uphold the integrity of all the Sahaba, the collective probity of all the Sahaba. We love and respect all of the Sahaba. We don't speak ill of any Sahabi. We don't even think ill of any Sahabi. And why is that? Can someone tell me? Oh, it's fine. Because Allah Ta'ala has already said, radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. Allah Ta'ala has already said that He's pleased with them. Allah Ta'ala has already said that He's prepared for them Jannat. So now if Allah Ta'ala is pleased with somebody, then do we have the right to be displeased with that person? Absolutely not, right? So that's something to keep in mind, that one of the defining characteristics of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that we love all the Sahaba and we respect all the Sahaba. We don't speak or even think ill of any Sahabi. So now in the next few minutes, I'm going to be speaking about some fighting that happened. Something that we really need to do is keep in mind that all the Sahaba, they had their own mindsets and they had their own ijtihad that they followed, and they had the right to do so. We're not going to take sides. We love and respect all of them. Okay? Like for example, an easy way to, I guess, sort of for us to envision this, is that if somebody, may Allah Ta'ala protect us and our families, but sometimes people see their parents fighting or their parents arguing. Now, as the child, do we take sides and say, okay, I'm only going to stick with my mom or only my dad, I'm not going to visit the other parent? No. Sometimes parents get divorced, and then what do the children do? They visit both parents because they say, okay, that's your own struggle, that's your own fight. It's very sad that it happened, but I'm not going to take sides. I still love both of you. Right? So that's exactly what we do at the Sahaba. We love all of them. Okay? So now Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, I was saying that he wanted to, his first order priority was to gain stability. And many of the other Sahaba, they wanted to first take revenge. Okay, so I guess I'll just have to condense it even more than I wanted to. But what happened was, there were two major battles that Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu fought in his time. One was, okay, let me just go to the next one. Okay, as you can see over here. One is called the Battle of Jamal. That was in the year 36. And the next one is called the Battle of Siffin in the year 37, as you can see on the screen. So the first one was between the army of Sayyidina Ali, and the opposing army was headed by some very, very prominent Sahaba. Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha, Sayyidina Talha and Zubair radiallahu anhuma. Talha and Zubair were amongst the 10 people that were promised Jannah. They're amongst the earliest Muslims. And they were on the opposing side, and Sayyidina Ali was on the other side. So now, why did they fight? Do you think they wanted to fight? So then these Sahaba, Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha, Talha and Zubair radiallahu anhuma, they said, okay, well, we're horrified by the fact that such a horrible thing, such a gruesome thing would happen to our Khalifa, to our ruler, Sayyidina Uthman. And then Sayyidina Ali is not able to, he's very evidently unable right now to take revenge because he doesn't have like full authority yet. People aren't listening to him. He hasn't like really gained stability yet. So we'll help him out. We'll go and we'll take revenge. We'll go and we'll kill those people that need to be put to death. And then we'll try to, just because to help Sayyidina Ali gain stability. Because people aren't going to listen to him until he first does away with these killers of Sayyidina Uthman. And he's not in a position to do so right now, so we'll just help him out. We'll help him in doing that because everyone agrees that this needs to be done. Revenge does need to be taken. So we'll just help him out in that, and then at that time, then everyone will recognize his authority. Everyone will be ready to listen to him. So that's what they set about to do. They went to a place called Basra, and they're like, many of the killers of Sayyidina Uthman have settled over there. So we'll go and we'll do away with them. And then what is the purpose of this? The purpose of this is not to oppose the Khalifa whatsoever. Rather, it's to help the Khalifa. Rather, it's to help increase understanding and cooperation between the Muslims, because right now there was no stability. There was a lot of internal struggle, internal strife. So they said, we'll go and we'll help him out. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu gets news that there's a huge army that's heading to Basra. But the news that he receives is not so accurate. He's told that this army is coming to oppose you. So then he goes and sets out with his army too. Now he goes and sets out, and then you have these two armies that are camped outside of Basra. And then now everyone is like, okay, let's just get it straight. What is going on over here? So then envoys are sent from each army to go and speak to the leadership of the opposing army. Say, okay, why are you here? What did you come to do? What's going on here? Because these people, are they enemies? No, they're all friends. They all grew up together. They all some of them are family members too. They're not enemies. So then Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha said that all we want to do is we just want to take vengeance against these people who are killers and deserve to be put to death. Sayyidina Ali is like, well, that's what I want to do too. I just want to gain stability first. So they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. Then let's all just join hands and then we can just cooperate together. And they had all agreed to cooperate. That there's no need for, we never even came to fight with one another in the first place. We're just trying to, it's good that now we're just all on the same page. There's no misunderstanding. Now, what had happened, at that point, everything seems good. But at that point, the killers of Sayyidina Uthman, they had mixed into the army of Sayyidina Ali. And keep in mind, there's hundreds of them. So it's not so easy to clearly distinguish who's who. And when you have armies that are 1,000 strong, then you can't always know exactly who's there and who's not there. Okay, is everyone with me up till this point? Okay, so now, so far, this is what's going on. Okay, so now the killers of Uthman, they have an agenda. What do they want to do? They want to see Islam crumble from the inside. So do you think that they're going to be content with this cooperation? Do you think that that suits their agenda? Obviously not. So then what did they do? They said, we need to take matters into our own hands, because if we don't do something fast, then everyone's going to cooperate and get along, and that's not what we want. So then what they did was, it was nighttime, and everyone had agreed that, okay, we're all on the same page, everyone is understanding everyone else, so let's all just get together in the morning and then we'll go back together. And they weren't going to have any of that. So they said that, okay, what we'll do is at night, we'll go into each army and then we'll just start killing people left and right. So that's what they did. Screaming, they were doing that, screaming, they betrayed us, they betrayed us. So now what do you think is going to happen? People wake up at night, they just see people being chopped up. And they hear yells of, they betrayed us. And then it's night, you can't see who's who. So then what do you think happened after that? Obviously, fighting ensued. So it was very unfortunate. No one wanted it to happen, but it was all just a ploy of these people of fitna. And then afterwards, Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha was extremely grieved by what had happened. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was extremely grieved by what happened. And then it was unfortunate, but that was one of the fitnas that befell the Muslims. Okay, so that's the first major battle that happened, the first major civil war, the Battle of Jamal. Does anyone know what Jamal means? Camel, right? So Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha had sat on a camel that was armored, and then the battle at many times was centering around her. People wanted to bring the camel down. So then it became known as the Battle of the Camel, the Battle of Jamal. Okay, that was the first one. And the second one, Battle of Siffin. Okay, it's almost 4 o'clock. I don't know if we have time to go into all of this. Should we just stop here, or do you want to hear the rest of it? Hear the rest? Okay. Does anyone not have the mental stamina to continue? Okay. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more. I won't, inshallah, exceed the 4:10 mark, which is the 1 hour mark, which is what we normally do. But I didn't want to keep it too long today because it's Jummah and everyone's tired and all that stuff. Okay, so now fast forward 1 year. The killers of Uthman are still not apprehended. So then now, Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, his name is Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. He is a Sahabi. He became Muslim at the conquest of Mecca. And he is the first cousin of Sayyidina Uthman. And he's also the governor of Sham. So now what does he see? He said that, well, Sayyidina Ali, he said the first priority should have been, and still is, to apprehend the murderers of Sayyidina Uthman. That still hasn't been done. I'm fully ready to pledge to Sayyidina Ali and to accept him as the ruler. But I just want this done first. And that doesn't seem to be happening. Okay? Does everyone understand up till this point? So now Sayyidina Ali, so now the people of Sham are like, okay, well, why don't, Sayyidina Ali is not able to do so right now due to the position that he's in. So although he wants to apprehend the murderers of Sayyidina Uthman, but he's not able to. So why don't you just do it? Because you're sort of like his heir. You're a very prominent person in the Muslim Ummah, you're a governor, and on top of that, you're his first cousin, you're his blood. So why don't you take vengeance for his blood that was spilled? And then Sayyidina Muawiyah said, okay, well, I can do that. And then was the purpose to oppose Sayyidina Ali? No. But then the purpose was just to help him, and then afterwards Sayyidina Muawiyah would be more than ready to pledge to Sayyidina Ali and accept him as the legitimate Khalifa. But now up till that point, these murderers of Uthman radiallahu anhu hadn't been apprehended. Okay. So now the people of Sham, they pledged to Sayyidina Muawiyah. They said, why don't you just take matters into your own hands? You can go do away with these murders of Sayyidina Uthman. And then afterwards, then everyone can pledge to Sayyidina Ali. So that was the plan. Now Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he hears that the people of Sham have pledged to Sayyidina Muawiyah. So he said, well, this can't be. I'm the Khalifa at this time. There can't be two Khalifas. So he set out with an army to go and fight them. Radiallahu anhuma. Now keep in mind, this is an issue of ijtihad. Can someone remind me, what does ijtihad mean? Sorry, I didn't hear. Interpretation. Okay, that's one good way of putting it. Anything else? Consensus, that's ijma'. Ijtihad. Interpretation, that's good translation. Does anyone have anything alternative? Sorry? Judgment. Okay, that works too. Ijtihad is when someone who has a right to do so, a scholar, a jurist, puts his mind to an issue that arises and tries to determine what is the best possible way of going about this according to the Quran and Sunnah. That's what ijtihad is. So now both these people have the right to ijtihad. One is Sayyidina Muawiyah. The issue is, what should be done first? Take care of the killers of Sayyidina Uthman or gain stability? That was what the question is. Now, is there a clear-cut answer? Does the Quran say do one or the other? If it's an issue of ijtihad, by its very nature, by definition, it's not something that's clearly stated in the Quran. Because if something was clearly stated in the Quran, would there be any need for ijtihad? No. So the fact of the matter is, the fact that they're doing ijtihad means that it's not a clear issue to begin with. So now Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he had the right to ijtihad, and his ijtihad was the first order priority is to gain stability. Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, his ijtihad was the first order priority is to take vengeance, to avenge the blood of Sayyidina Uthman. So they're both entitled to their ijtihad. And their ijtihad led them in opposite directions. And what ended up happening was Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu went to Sham, and then they fought in a battle in a place called Siffin, and then it became known as the Battle of Siffin. And unfortunately in both battles, Jamal and Siffin, there are large casualties, large numbers of casualties amongst the Sahaba and the Tabi'een. It was a very tragic time. But what we learn from this is that first of all, we learn about these things knowing that all the Sahaba are people that we love. All the Sahaba are people that Allah Ta'ala proclaimed that He is pleased with them. So we have no right to object against anyone. That's one thing. Another thing is we learned that the Sahaba didn't live on some different planet. Naturally, humans are inherently, they're prone to conflict. They're prone to struggle. Is there anybody here in this room today who's never disagreed with anyone? No, it's not even possible. Our human nature is that we disagree with people. We don't always see eye to eye. So the Sahaba also were subject to this. They also disagreed. Okay, but does that detract from their status in any way? Obviously not. This helps us relate to the Sahaba better because we see that they are subject to the same human limitations that we are. But despite the fact that they were subject to that, they still maintained the integrity for the opposite side, and they still maintain the Sharia and all those things that inshallah we'll discuss maybe in the next few days. Okay, so that was the Battle of Siffin. Okay, so I don't have time to go into too much more detail, but the idea is that neither one we say is definitively right or wrong. Rather, they both have the prerogative of ijtihad. The Battle of Nahrawan is another battle of during the time of Sayyidina Ali. There was a group of people known as the Khawarij who came up with this really deviant, heretical interpretation of Islam. They went about killing anyone who didn't accord to their interpretation. So they killed Sahaba because those Sahaba didn't agree with their deviant interpretation of Islam. They're killing Muslims left and right. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he had to deal with these people too. So that was known as the Battle of Nahrawan. Okay. So now we see that the Khilaf of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu is marred by civil war and internal dispute. It wasn't an easy period whatsoever. And then at the end of it, what ended up happening? Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu himself was killed. He was assassinated by the Khawarij. So now after that, he passes away, radiallahu anhu. And then Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, the people of Sham have already pledged to him. So you have sort of like two parallel khilafas that are going on. There's one khilafah in the north in Sham, and who is the khalifa over there? Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. And then you have the other, like the quote-unquote normal khilafah, which is the khilafah that had been headed by Sayyidina Ali. And then after that he passes away and his son takes over. Hassan bin Ali. Hassan bin Ali radiallahu anhu is the son of Sayyidina Ali, and what other distinction does he have? He's also the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he takes over. Now, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a prophecy about Sayyidina Hassan. What did he say? Right, Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. Okay, they're the leaders of the youth of Jannah. Okay, that's one thing. What else? Exactly. Very good. The Prophet ﷺ picked up Sayyidina Hassan when he was a young child, just a few years old. And he said, "Inna ibni hada sayyid." This son of mine, grandson of mine, is a leader. لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ يُصْلِحُ بِهِ بَيْنَ فِئَتَيْنِ عَظِيمَتَيْنِ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Allah Ta'ala will bring about peace through him between two great groups of Muslims. And sure enough, around 40 years later, 40 something, maybe 35, 36 years later, after that, what happened? Not 40 years, about 30 years later, what happens? Sayyidina Hassan is now the Khalifa in the, you can say the main Khilafah. And then Sayyidina Muawiyah is the Khalifa in the north. Now Sayyidina Muawiyah, does he have any deficiency in leadership? He is a very strong leader. He's a very competent leader. But just that the issue is that there's two parallel Khilafahs going on. And do you think do you think it's good to have two parallel Khilafahs? Do you think that's going to lead to cooperation? No, by its very nature, there's going to be conflict. So Sayyidina Hassan said, okay, let's make this deal. I'll abdicate my Khilafah for your sake. And I'll hand it over to you, O Sayyidina Muawiyah. And then we'll just have this agreement that after you pass away, then who'll become the Khalifa? Me. And then, so they all agreed to that. So he left the Khilafah for the sake of Sayyidina Muawiyah. So for the first time in years at that point, what happened? The entire Muslim Ummah is now united. The entire Muslim Ummah is now in peace. So we see that this is a manifestation of the prophecy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, up till that point, is everyone with me? Okay, we're approaching that 4:10 mark, so I have to wrap it up. Inshallah, anything that we leave out, I'll continue later. Inshallah. Okay, now keep in mind that, let's go back a little bit. Okay, so now with that historical background in mind, let's go back to this initial chart that we extracted from the hadith. We have bad times. And what were those bad times again? Can someone remind me? Jahiliyyah, right? Pre-Islamic ignorance. Then after that, you have good times. What are those good times? Yeah, Islam, basically the Prophet ﷺ coming, bringing Islam, etc. And then after that, you have bad times. And now based on this whole historical thing that I gave you, what do you think those bad times are? The assassination of Sayyidina Uthman and all the fitna that followed. Okay, based on that, now we can do ta'yin, we can determine what these are, the bad times. Let me stand up, it'll be easier that way. Okay, everyone with me up till this point? Yes. Okay, then what happens after that? You have good times. And what do you think those good times might be? Okay, Sayyidina Muawiyah, but what was the inception of that? Where did it start? Sayyidina Hassan radiallahu anhu. So Sayyidina Hassan radiallahu anhu, due to him, they signed this peace treaty and everyone became united. So it started with that, and the period in which Sayyidina Muawiyah, the 20 years in which he was Khalifa, was characterized by peace and justice. It was a time of peace, a time of unity. So then you have it starts with Sayyidina Hassan and then it continues for the 20 years after Sayyidina Muawiyah. Okay, so those are the good times. But the problem is it's tainted. Okay, and now unfortunately we don't have time to go into how it's tainted. But off the top of your head, if anyone has any background knowledge, how do you think it might be tainted? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Naam, ba'da dhalika sharb khair, lakin fihi dakhan." It's going to be tainted. So how do you think it's tainted? Sorry, good. Death of Sahaba, okay, that works. Anything a little bit more specific? Indulgence, okay, that works too. Anything else? Okay, so that's part of it too. So all the things that you said, like they all make sense. And the point is that, as I mentioned yesterday too, the wording of the hadith is general. So we can't exactly pinpoint that it's this and nothing else. I mean, at the best we can do is we can interpret it. We can say that this is a possible explanation, but we don't know for sure. Okay, but it's tainted, and there's many possible ways that it might be tainted. During that period after Sayyidina Muawiyah, who became the Khalifa? Well, first of all, why didn't Sayyidina Hassan become the Khalifa after Sayyidina Muawiyah? He passed away. And does anyone know how he passed away? Yeah, I mean, I guess the popular narrative is that he was poisoned. Sayyidina Hassan himself didn't reveal any information about it. He said he doesn't want that person to be apprehended, whoever perpetrated that act. But okay, do you think that that's a good thing? Obviously not. Then afterwards, Yazid is the Khalifa. And then there's a lot of discussion about Yazid, but some bad things happened in his Khilafah. Whether or not he was responsible is a separate discussion. But what happens when he's the Khalifa? Yazid, the son of Muawiyah. Sayyidina Hussein radiallahu anhu is martyred. And then what else? There's something called Waqiyatul Harra, in which there was the troops of the Khalifa marched on Medina. And then there was bloodshed. Many people in Medina were murdered or slaughtered. Is that good? Who was living in Medina at that time? This is now the year 63. There's still some Sahaba around, primarily the children and grandchildren of Sahaba. So now these people are being slaughtered. Do you think that that's good? Obviously not. So now, generally there's stability, but you have these problems that are here and there. So you have good, but it's tainted. And then after that, but see, there's so many different interpretations we can do. And after that, you have really bad times. Du'at ala abwabi jahannam, people, callers at the gates of hell. Now, what do you think that is? Now, this is open for the rest of time. Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, how many time periods did he specify? 5. So now this one is open. All of them, I mean, many of them can be open, but I mean, due to like our discussion, we can say that this one is probably the most open, that can continue and persist even up to our time. Then even at our time today, can we see this? Du'at ala abwabi jahannam, people calling at the gates of hell, that are looking like us and speaking like us. So it's hard to really discern sometimes like who they are. Do we see this? We do. People promoting heretical beliefs. People saying things about Islam that no one for 1400 years has heard, right? So these, inshallah, I guess tomorrow we can go into a little bit more detail about it, inshallah. But tomorrow, I don't know. Tomorrow there might be a Salat seminar, I'll just confirm that. But if it's not tomorrow, then whenever we have our next session, we'll go into a little bit more detail, inshallah. So this is a very sticky topic. It's a very delicate topic when we speak about the fighting that occurred between Sahaba. But the one thing to keep in mind is that the lesson that we need to take home is that we love all the Sahaba. We don't disrespect or even think ill of any of them. And then we see that since they were subject to conflict, obviously we are too. We're all human. But that means that we do so with integrity. We still try to maintain the Sharia, just as the Sahaba did. If anyone has any unclarity whatsoever, please see me afterwards and then we can discuss it. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Just as a disclaimer, I didn't go into nearly as much detail as I was planning on doing. I have this book in front of me, and I was planning on reading quotations to you from different books and things like that about like all this internal struggle, but that didn't happen. Inshallah, maybe in our next session we can do that. And I had many more hadith that I wanted to discuss, as you can see, but inshallah next time. Tomorrow, I just have to confirm with the administration. I'm not sure. There might be a Salah seminar in place of our Sundays as a Zakat seminar. And then tomorrow, I'm not sure. I just have to confirm. It might be a Salat seminar. I'll just see about that. And if not, then we will continue with our session, inshallah. It's only a sisters program? Okay. Okay, so I'll just confirm with the administration and we'll see, inshallah. Okay. Yeah, he was originally, or maybe he maintained the fact that he was Jewish. Yeah, the Khawarij emerged in the time of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. and they came up with heretical interpretations, a very literal interpretation of the Quran, and they dismissed and actually killed anyone who didn't agree with their interpretation. So the Khawarij appeared at that time, but we can see evidence of people that have the same line of thought even today, after the Khawarij up till our time. We'll discuss it more, inshallah, in the upcoming days. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.